Hi, this is Jason Retail Geek Goldberg. Welcome to the National Restaurant Association Thought Leadership Panel on the Future of Retail. We've gotten together some of the foremost experts in the industry to have a conversation about some of the topics that are facing us in 2022. So without further ado, let's meet the panel. Karl, can you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Karl Goodhew, BurgerFi International. I'm responsible for 120 plus locations in the United States.
Colleen Caruso. I head up our enterprise sales, engineering, and operations, and I'm fortunate enough to have Karl and BurgerFi as one of our customers providing managed services.
I'm Courtney Radke. I'm the field CISO for retail at Fortinet. So we provide security and networking solutions for the retail industry.
So I started my career at a now butt of the joke retailer named Blockbuster Entertainment. And Blockbuster was digitally disrupted in about 1998. And I would argue that the restaurant industry has really only been disrupted in the last couple of years. And so it's super interesting to me to think about all the new challenges and opportunities that restaurants are being presented with. As a result of this digital disruption, we're seeing a lot of the traditional barriers that separated different channels of restaurants are now competing with each other. So you can use digital to have a very fast experience in a fast casual restaurant that can now compete with a QSR. And we have grocery stores that are now trying to deliver ready-to-eat meals in competition. And every restaurant now has to sell through marketplaces. And so, we have this whole new ecosystem of digital amenities that restaurants are expected to offer. And at the same time, we're in this epic battle for talent and labor. And because of the constrained labor force, they have a lot more autonomy, and we now have to appeal to them to win the labor that we want to win. So it's a really challenging time for restaurants, and I would argue that there's a tremendous opportunity for the restaurants that can get ahead of the curve in this regard. So, Karl, that's a perfect opportunity to start with you. What are some of the challenges you're seeing in this digital disruption of restaurants?
I would say that the biggest challenge that restaurants are facing with this digital disruption is that a huge portion of the service is now shifted outside of the four walls. So obviously, to compete, you have to be online. You have to be ready to serve your customers wherever and whenever they want and however they want. So it's tough as a restaurateur to wrap your head around that if you're an operator. You're thinking about cooking fries or making burgers, not about the online experience, not about the different ways that a customer might find you, all the competitors that you just mentioned, right? So now you're competing for market share on the social space, on search. Pretty much every different medium, you have to compete and understand what your competitors are doing and make sure you're there and your customers know about you and they're top of mind, and then obviously share of wallet. So for me, we kind of separated into two different buckets of thinking. It's really what happens in the restaurant and engaging the employees so that they can do a job in an easier way. And that might be done through training mechanisms. It might be done through service announcements to let them know that someone arrived through curbside or something like that. And then we also think about the customer experience and how they're greeted, whether that's through menu boards, kiosks, POS, online, so on and so forth. So it's really complicated, and you have to really work with your partners to leverage the expertise that's available to you, because frankly, that labor situation isn't just in the restaurants, right? It's in the corporate environment also. So I can't go and hire techs to go up and down the East Coast and service. So it's multi-pronged, and it's very, very complicated.
It does sound super complicated. You had me at making French fries, by the way. But Courtney, as Karl's describing all of that, I'm imagining that it's also rising a lot of new security concerns as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I came from the restaurant industry, and so I feel like this digital transformation has been happening for quite some time. Restaurants especially having to make sure that they're getting access to their customers wherever their customers are, whether that's now through mobile, ordering online, directly in the store. We talk about it often as kind of that marriage of physical and digital. It's been happening over the last 5 years, but definitely over the last 18, 24 months, it's continued to pick up. It's probably never going to stop. So what that does is brings on some security concerns just in the sheer scale of technology that's brought into these organizations. It's nothing for us to see a customer that has 30 or 40 different technology vendors inside of their environment. Now we're talking about bringing all of the devices online inside the store. The fry cooker that you're just talking about, that's online. The fridges have IoT sensors. There's solar panels on the roof. All of this technology coming in it's bringing on that third party, that supply chain risk, where you may have all the greatest standards from a security standpoint, but maybe those partners don't. And so what I think we've seen is subscribing to more of the platform approach of taking those 40 or 30 vendors or whatever down and bringing it into a manageable amount of them. That's done through obviously subscribing to a platform ecosystem. We like to say restaurants are either becoming a platform, leveraging one, or they're maintaining status quo, and it doesn't last very long. So when we talk about technology, it's through the partners. It obviously takes operators in the restaurant industry that are at least fast followers. They don't have to be leading all the time, but utilizing the technology that's available to them through their partners and hopefully in a more integrated manner.
So Courtney, when you talk about all of that, it makes me start to think about how mission critical this new infrastructure has begun. Back in the beginning of my career, when a store would lose telco, what that meant is they would have to get out a physical imprint machine to take credit cards, right? And it was barely a disruption to the business.
Yeah.
But today, with these always-on digital experiences, I imagine that connectivity and that infrastructure is more mission critical than ever. Karl, do you lose any sleep over that at all?
No. No, I mean, you have to think about that, right? So yeah, it's very painful.
Yes, it's the always-on customer experience. As we just said, over the last couple months or years, we've really realized that it's always on all the time. There has to have consistency of experience because there's also more options out there than ever before. And so I think now it's become more business critical than ever. We felt like it's really things like SD-WAN to protect that internet connectivity has become a necessary, not a nice to have. It's a you need to have this now, even just to maintain table stakes with the rest of the competition that's out there. It's about resiliency and redundancy, but really how can you survive a failure, but also how can your applications continue even in the event of an integrated state. That's important right now.
And I think from my perspective, and Karl, you can agree or disagree, it's not just about the technology, it's not just about the connectivity, but you need that managed service partner to be able to make sure they're taking care of keeping your network up so that folks that are in your restaurants are paying attention to your business, addressing the labor challenges. And, we Hughes have the security in-house expertise to make sure that your team isn't dealing with that. We are. So we lose sleep, so you don't.
That's very true. That's very true. And I would say maybe 3 years ago, the approach was, well, we've got floor limits on our payment system, so we can still operate. It's not great, but we've got a fallback scenario. Now that close to or approaching 50% of the business may be going through online channels, you can't do that. That's not an option. So you have to have that ability to make a phone call or actually have a proactive view of the network.
That's right.
And understand where things are possibly failing and proactively go out there and take care of business.
Colleen, Karl mentioned earlier talking about the necessity to rely on partners and unique expertise in this modern ecosystem. And one of the acronym soups that came up with me was the distinction between like managed service providers, MSPs, and MSSPs. And I was hoping you could maybe shed some light on what the heck that is.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, Hughes as a managed services provider and MSP, we've looked at these digital transformations. We've been a solid partner with Fortinet for a long time. And, we've noticed this transition. And in order to attack it, we've kind of made this investment into becoming more of a managed security services provider. So taking on a lot of the cybersecurity risks of our customers and being able to, increase our subject matter expertise, because as we know, that cybersecurity labor is a challenge right across the board. So we've made huge investments. We've made that transition with, the help of Fortinet, and we've expanded our security portfolio. You talk about IoT, you talk about putting sensors on refrigerators, stoves, et cetera. I mean, that just expands your threat landscape. And so you have to not just have the security technology, but you need to have the processes, the people, and how do we respond in the event that there's a cybersecurity threat.
And what's interesting is, of course, we're inviting our customers into the environment and we're asking them to use our network to order through tabletop ordering or through their phone, use loyalty. So the number of attack vectors has increased substantially, exponentially.
Yeah.
And that's not, that's customers, you can't control them. So you just have you have to be monitoring and making sure no one's being nefarious.
Exactly. Yeah, we talk about it again as that there's two camps. It's consolidation, moving it down to the manageable amount of vendors in your environment, but it's also about the convergence of network and security. It can't be two different camps anymore. Your network has to feed into your security tools. Your security needs to be able to understand if there's anomalous traffic on your network, discern that very quickly and make sure that you're spotting the threats as quickly as possible. So I don't think they can be different camps anymore either. Working through partners, working through these technology platforms. I think we'll see that more often, that there's not going to be as many lines between network and security teams. It's going to be converged.
Yeah, I agree with that. For sure, that was another driving reason for us to do that.
And then also, I'll add on there that I certainly don't have the staff to be monitoring 24/7, and they don't have the expertise to understand.
You don't just stay up all night?
I try not to. Sometimes I do, but no, I mean, to have an expert partner, a partner in the field that understands what's important, and more importantly, sometimes, hey, that's not a problem. So I will say also that I don't want to stay up all night, and this threat landscape is something that's there 24/7. With the nature of Wi-Fi and your network being outside the four walls, someone could be right outside of your restaurant and attacking you. I don't have the staff to monitor 24/7, so I think it's important to have a partner who's an expert in that and understand what's important, notify us when it is important, and then sometimes it's also important, or it's important for my sanity at least, that they understand when it's not important and just, hey, this business as usual.
Yeah, and we've been able to create, our SOC as a service, and so bringing in that talent so that we're looking at the logs for you, we're determining what the mitigation should be, we're providing that incident response that you just don't have the staff for, and we've been able to strengthen those security services again with the partnership that we've had over these years, and it's been fabulous, and I think we've shown that with what we've been able to do with BurgerFi.
Yeah, I mean, our FortiGuard threat intelligence, they respond on or look at billions of events every day. I mean, we have one of the largest sensor networks in the entire world. So if it's been out there, if it's something occurring, it's nefarious, chances are we've seen it or we're the ones spotting it. And so that the technology that feeds back into these restaurant organizations that our partners leverage is, we have hardware, but we also have, services and software. And so that the big brains behind the operation is FortiGuard. It's 20 years now of threat intelligence, discovery, information sharing, and we work with a lot of organizations, in the industry to help share information with them as well. Because I think we're only as smart as the sum of all of our knowledge that's out there, and so we like to share that with our partners and with our customers as well.
And I will say, as a public company, I have an obligation to monitor and report out when something does occur. I'm legally required to do that. So without someone that I trust who's monitoring that, I wouldn't be able to look my board in the eye and say that I'm doing that and doing a good job. So I definitely need partners who can monitor 24/7.
One of the common denominators I've noticed of all these digital disruption is the incredible acceleration of the pace of business, both customer expectations, employee expectations, shareholder expectations. And I have to imagine that speed has a really prominent impact on security as well. Courtney, can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, absolutely. We like to say that, speed is the time is the one thing you can't get back in attack. So speed is your friend. Speed to identify what's on your network because, the most damaging part of an attack is dwell time. How long was it there before you knew what collateral damage is it creating along the way? So if you're not actively, proactively looking for these threats that are out there, something is going to happen at some point. So it's how quickly can you identify when it does occur in your network? Are the integrations between all of your tools good enough to spot things in real time? I think that's what we've seen, is one of the biggest challenges that cybersecurity companies in general don't like to work together. They should. We should be better about it. So we found that making sure that everything is integrated, automated, you can create that proactive stance because again, speed is key when you're trying to prevent these fast-moving attacks, ransomware, botnets that are just ever pervasive in the environment.
I think one of the things we're excited about too with making this transition into the MSSP space, we're also, taking on AI ops a little bit more in the forefront. So, we used to be reactive to certain things and then we went into proactive mode. And now it's, predictive and prescriptive. So you get ahead of these things before they even present themselves as a threat. And, it's exciting to see, but it's moving fast.
We talk about it, security at the speed of the business because what we should never be doing as a security company is, making you have to say no. You should be able to say yes, more securely, more effectively, more quickly. Often security has been seen as a bottleneck. It's been seen as, a hurdle to overcome. So we like to make sure that any technology that we're developing for the industry allows them to do that at the speed of business, integrate with your business practices. Are there additional steps sometimes? Yes, absolutely, for sure. But I think we have to look at the consequences of not taking security, doing it effectively or building it in from the beginning. We've seen the consequences of that. So I think a lot of organizations are definitely more security focused, but especially over the last 18 months.
And I'll add to that, relying on partners like Fortinet and Hughes who think about that all the time and have the power of their business and the numbers and the scale to do that, it frees up the restaurant industry and the restaurateurs to think about how they're going to serve customers better. So that speed of service is really now becoming how can I change and react to the changing business environment and make sure that customers are being served in the way that they want to be served. Absolutely.
I had a mentor back in the 1990s that coined this phrase, anything that can be digital will be. And today that doesn't sound like very insightful, but back in the 1990s, that was somewhat controversial. And I kind of feel like no place more than the restaurant industry is that true today. I mean, you think about how the technology footprint is expanding in your business, Karl, and now the kitchen is automated with robots, the delivery is automated with drones, everything from the soap dispenser to the refrigerators and IoT device. I'm assuming it's super easy to get your IT budget to scale proportionately with all of these new innovations.
We're hoping for larger budgets.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. No, I think that you're absolutely right. Now, at the end of the day, food has to be digested. There's nothing that you can change about that. However, maybe someone in the future orders, not the future, like today, right? They can order on the metaverse. They can get an NFT to celebrate that they had this particular meal that was chef inspired. So there's different ways that that no one's really thought of. It's not mainstream, but will it be? Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like those sort of future-looking things are so interesting because it's easy to sit here and say that's silly. There's no ROI for metaverse ordering today. But I just think to remember bringing a team on an airplane and flying to the Bay Area to order a pizza on the internet, right? Because there was one zip code in America where you could do an order. And at the time we thought this is the highest friction, most ridiculous thing ever. But but today, of course, like nobody thinks anything of that. And so it's really interesting to think about some of these bleeding edge use cases that maybe aren't necessarily huge ROI today, but it certainly seems like it's important to at the very least be dogfooding these things and thinking about the implications of supporting them, and I imagine the security implications as well.
The continued security. It's just rolling in my head, all of these things, connecting drones to your logistics. Now a lot of retailers are changing space for their warehousing distribution, bringing in more robotics. I know that you guys have played with a lot of that, a lot of the restaurant industry guys as well. I mean, there's going to be upwards of 30 billion IoT devices online by 2025. That's probably low now based on the amount of organizations having to dive deep into that. So the security ramifications are just, they're nigh impossible to keep up with at scale most of the times. And so that's definitely something that we worry about, something that Karl doesn't have to worry about. That's what our organizations are doing. Talking about just the scale that we touched on ransomware and botnets, we saw 1,000% increase in ransomware attacks from one year to the next. It's leveled out over the last year, but it hasn't gone down. Right? So that 1,000% increase is just contained, it's maintained, it's continuing. So we have to make sure that we're ever vigilant and making sure that we're providing that best service out there, analyzing those events every day to get so Karl doesn't have to, and that we can partner with partners like Hughes to manage that technology at scale.
Colleen, is there anything that the MSSPs can do to help sort of scale this challenge?
Yeah, so technology is one thing, right? Understanding where we're going, where we're heading. The importance that, usually is in the background and not necessarily in the forefront is you have to test these technologies. You have to make sure that when you're putting them in, how many restaurants do you have now?
We have 30 corporate, and it's a total of 120.
Right, so you're talking, you can do onesie, twosie on your own, but you need someone with the proven experience like Hughes that has, we know how to kick the tires, we know how to go through proof of concepts, but we also know how to operate it at scale. These things we talk about, they're fun, they're sexy, they're gonna bring us into the next generation, but there's the feet on the street that Karl referenced earlier, right? If something goes wrong and you need someone in that store, you need that MSP to be able to operate at scale. And I think that's, what we bring to the table that, is kind of in the background.
Sorry, but I think I came from the restaurant industry, and having the wires that are all neatly bundled up and having the access points and switches in a rack, that's sexy to me. Having everything. There's two different camps here. I came from operator side restaurant technology, and it's always pretty sexy to me to see nicely bundled wires in the back end.
I think it levels up the professionalism in the environment to see a location that maybe has strung together several 8-port switches together, and they're hanging on the wall, and then they have professional equipment that's actually monitoring a real firewall, not something that the cable company says will protect them. I think that's it. It makes it a real solution and not just something that may work sometimes.
Courtney, we joke with Karl about scaling IT budgets, but I know a real concern for every CTO in this space is how to invest their precious dollars, because no one has enough capital. Do you have any advice that you tend to give to the CTOs or CIOs about how they should be prioritizing that constrained budget?
Yeah, we talk about it again as that platform. We call it a security fabric that just make sure the technology investments that you make integrate well with each other, that they actively share information. Again, in the industry, we see there's a little bit of butting heads with security and networking companies that maybe their technologies don't integrate well together. So what we've seen is a move away from a point product approach, this best of breed, and moving into a fully integrated platform where everything is sharing information. It's easier to monitor, it's easier to manage at scale, and it provides you the best security bang for the buck as well. One of the biggest issues from a security standpoint is misconfigurations, is human errors. So if you limit the amount of things that have to be configured, that have to be monitored, you put yourself in a much better place from a security standpoint.
And if we take over, right, the configuration and managing those the entitlements, the licensing, your team doesn't have to do that. We take care of that for you, and we work on integration, right? If your network runs with the Fortinet security, but you also have, managed digital signage in your stores. And, so Hughes, we take on that entire umbrella and integrate to the point where it's seamless for you as the end user.
Well, listen, I could pick your brains for the next 4 hours, but we're actually coming up on time. So I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share any final thoughts that we didn't cover. Karl, from your perspective?
Well, I will take a step back actually and say that we also have to think about the fundamentals. There's restaurants out there that don't have chip readers and tap to pay, which are far more secure than swipe. So if you're in the restaurant industry, you own a restaurant, start with the basics, get that right, then think about your network, think about the ecosystem as a whole, and partner with folks who know what they're doing. That way you can focus on delivering the best customer experience.
Yeah, and I think from an MSSP perspective, having that partner to take on the heavy lifting while you're focused on your business, while your employees are, not spending time resetting a firewall or looking at flashing lights or trying to move a cable from here to there. Your employees in your restaurants are focusing on their customer to, provide a good customer experience for them. So I would close with, make that thought process follow an MSP or an MSSP is certainly an advantage.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of end it with why we see technology adoption, growing rapidly. Kind of three areas that technology is being driven by is that we talk about the physical and digital. It's not about we're experiential creatures. We like to touch and feel things. We like to go inside restaurants and have a sit-down experience, but we also like convenience. And so having the mobile apps, loyalty, web, all of these things are super important. So marrying physical, digital. Adapted to the reimagined workforce. There's not more people out there, right? So we have to maintain, retain our people by creating less friction in the training experience and the onboarding, keeping employees happy at work. That's a great resource for you to have. And then protecting from supply chain, because we talk about a lot of these attacks. Oftentimes, maybe an organization is the target, but a lot of times they're not. They're collateral damage because they're trying to attack and impact a vendor that you maybe brought into your environment or one of those IoT devices. You may have not been the end goal, but you're part of collateral damage. So we talk about protecting against supply chain risks. Those are kind of the three trends that we see, technology, cybersecurity technology being adopted so rapidly for.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Whenever we talk about the challenges and opportunity of digital disruption, people sometimes ask, why are you spending so much bandwidth on security? I get that's part of it, but that's only one aspect of this whole digital disruption. And, I'm reminded of a painful experience that Target learned in 2013. And for folks that don't know, their credit card readers were breached in 2013. And an interesting stat, 50% of all account holders at Target.com never came back to Target after that breach. So you think about it, there's a VP of e-commerce that lost 50% of his customers overnight. And what's painful about that is Target wasn't breached online. There was never a security breach online. The actual vector of attack was exactly like Karl mentioned. It was an Internet of Things refrigerator that was sitting on a vendor network. And so to me, that just reminds me what a critical role security plays in this transformation, and how it really isn't just the job of the security gurus in the IT department. That in this climate, security is everyone's job and everyone needs to be vigilant.
Absolutely.